Hi, Ruth.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Todd. Sorry to hear about your father-in-law.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it was a long weekend.
I'm sure you're exhausted.
Yeah, well, recovering. We had yesterday to kind of decompress a little, so that was good.
Hello.
Hello, Melanie.
Hello, Melanie.
There's Linda.
once again, I don't have a signal. Cage is gonna have to. He's right.
Did you call him?
Called Marty. I'm like, is this supposed to say this? Does that cat have to do something? She's like, no, I have to have the cage change something. So.
Downstairs again? Oh, good grief. So Leslie just told me that she's not getting a signal through eScribe, so we're waiting for Cage from IT to come over and fix something. So that's the update.
So how many of these things are essential in order to have the meeting? I assume eScribe are we having issues with YouTube as well?
YouTube's live.
Okay. So it's just eScribe.
Yep. eScribe is, yeah, what records us and.
Right. No, that one's essential. I understand that.
Yep. So are we just waiting for Taka? There she is.
Well, I assume we're waiting on eScribe.
Let me go check on Leslie and see if she can get volume. Okay, I've got a 542-9150 wanting to enter the meeting. Does anybody recognize that number?
Is that either
David?
Gwen or Brian?
Who, Carl?
Gwen or Brian?
I don't know.
It is not according to my list of city council phone numbers.
Well,
Could it be? No, it couldn't. I don't know.
if we have some public comment at the beginning, might be somebody wanting to do that. Or do we need to continue to wait, Joe?
Sorry, Carl, can you say that again?
Do we need to continue to wait or can we begin?
No, we need to wait.
Carl, just so you know, eScribe is the software that actually archives all the meetings. So that's official record, which is why we have to wait.
Well, we can't have an unofficial record.
That's correct. It would be probably fake news, be my guess.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So we send IT an urgent message. I sent Gage came right over.
Well, I mean, I don't know if he has to come in here. I think he can.
If you keep rocking, Carl, I'm gonna fall asleep.
We don't want that.
I don't know. It might be pretty good.
Well, there wouldn't be an official record of it, so maybe it's okay.
I imagine.
Yeah.
I think we're missing a really interesting presentation at City Club today. The Public Service Commission candidates. They had over 350 people dialing in today.
I'm not surprised.
Well, there's been some mixed messaging out there on that topic, hasn't there?
Sure has.
Jill, do we know if Cage has shown up yet?
I'm calling him right now.
Okay.
No answer. Hey, Kage, it's Jill over in council chambers. We're just waiting to start our MRA board meeting, and Just waiting on you to do something, I guess, to get eScribe running. Thanks, bye.
Is Cage the only solution to this? Probably.
According to Leslie, he was the one that Marty said needs to come over and do something.
Well, hopefully he's not out
Let me
doing.
try calling Marty and see if she's tracked him down.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
On your meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all right. That's all I want to know. Yep. We're just waiting to. Okay. It's not gonna
Okay, you just get here?
We have a hard time getting here because, well, maybe they haven't got his building shut down, but I had to go out the other side of City Hall.
Sure.
All right.
Is it working, ladies?
There'll be a 50-second delay.
Cage, is that something that gets,
TriCaster's on.
You're taking your screen. Well, we should have up next on this.
It looks like it's running. All right, then, are we ready?
not yet. So it sounds like it's a cable that they had plugged in for the new system that we're going to be up and getting up and running. And they unplugged it and it should be working, but it's not yet. So here we are. All right, sounds like we're ready to go.
All right, well, all right, it's 12:10 or so. We're starting a little late. We had some technical difficulties. This is the regular board meeting of the Missoula Redevelopment Agency. It's Monday, October 19th, 2020. Call the meeting to order. The Zoom sort of tells us who's on, so I think we can skip the introductions. We are doing this over Zoom, obviously, so anyone listening in will have a couple of opportunities for public comment, one right at the beginning for matters that are within the board's jurisdiction, but not on the action item agenda, and then the one item on our action item agenda, the North Riverside Parks and Trail Master Plan, we will take public comment on that when we get to that point. Jill will put numbers up on the board for people to call in. Jill, because we're going to have general public comment in a few minutes, if you would do that now so that we could avoid that delay when we get to it. With that, we have September 21, 2020 regular board meeting minutes. Any additions or corrections to those minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve them?
This is Nancy. I move approval of the minutes as submitted.
Okay, second, someone?
This is
Melanie, I'll
Ruth.
second it. Oh,
Ruth, second them? Okay,
Yes, I'll second.
all right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Can you give me a second here and tell me whether you can see the numbers?
We
you
can
see the-
numbers now? So this is the time for any public comments or announcements, matters not on the.
I have one member waiting to get into the meeting. I'll admit them now.
Okay.
Their phone number ends with 9150.
Okay. If that person wants to identify themselves and make comment, now be the time to do it. Joe, do you have them muted or?
Let me see. Hi, caller with the phone number, last four digits 9150. You're now in the meeting. Did you have public comment? Please identify yourself and proceed.
Hi, this is Joe Easton. My public comment is about the North Riverside Trails action item, not the minutes.
Okay. Joe, we'll get to that in a few minutes. Is there anything else from anybody? Announcements, comments? Anybody else waiting, Joe? All right, let's move to the action item, which is the North Riverside Parks and Trail Master Plan. Annette, are you up?
I am up. So this North Riverside Parks and Trails Master Plan is an outgrowth of the Downtown Master Plan that was adopted last fall. And I will, it primarily, the initiative was led by the Downtown Partnership and the Parks Department. MRA did provide some funding, and I sat on the leadership committee for the for this master plan. It has been completed. The same consultants that did the Downtown Master Plan, Dover Cole, did this master plan, led this initiative. And it's largely complete. I think there's still some editing in the narrative report that is ongoing, but the master plan itself is complete. And the intent is to get approval or adoption for the plan from a number of groups, including the MRA. And I will turn this over to Linda McCarthy with the Downtown partnership, and Nathan McLeod with the Parks Department to provide a brief presentation, and then we can proceed to comment and request for adoption.
Thank you, Annette. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you, even though we're not in person. I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you on this particular plan. And let me start with saying thank you for supporting the planning projects that we have embarked upon over the course of the last few years. Your support of our work and our community-wide planning processes are valuable and appreciated. I'm here today with Nathan McLeod, Missoula Parks and Recreation, who has essentially served as our staff lead on this secondary planning process since the completion of the Downtown Master Plan in August of 2019. Just a show of hands, how many of you have actually viewed the video on the Engage Missoula site? Raise your hand if you have. Okay, good job. And then second question, how many of you have actually read the document? Raise your hand if you have. Okay. It is a relatively easy read, unlike the original Downtown Master Plan, which was about, I think, 400 pages. This one is about 115 pages, and many of the pages are graphical renderings. So this planning process began at the time we finished up the master plan, and really is sort of a secondary deeper dive on the parks and trails north of the Clark Fork River from Missoula College to Russell Street. Much of what has happened on the south side has already been planned and developed. But as you know, there are many things on the north side that need to be connected and enhanced. So we raised the money and hired Dover Cole to do this secondary planning process. And right about the time we were ready to roll out the plan to the public in March was when COVID hit, and we had to pivot everything to the digital platform. And to be quite frank, Dover Cole knocked it out of the ballpark. They put together several videos, I think it was 6 or 7 videos last spring, to really try and give people a 3D view of the proposed improvements in the park. Despite moving to the digital platform, we have had very good engagement from the community on this planning process. Frankly, over 2,000 Missoula people have touched this plan at some point over the course of the last year, many of them viewing videos and filling out online surveys. So the goal of this secondary planning process is really to improve sustainability and environmental quality of the parks and the river trail and the river corridor, to increase park space and relocate surface parking, to celebrate the river, and that means a lot of different things to different people, and to enhance functions and programming. As you know, Caras Park, East Caras Park is generally used seasonally. We typically do between 80 and 100 events per year in that park. And then it oftentimes sits quiet when we're not having large events. And certainly COVID has definitely shown us that Caras Park in particular is really good for events only. And we want to change that and make it more accessible and more inclusive for everybody. Over the course of the last 12 years, we've seen probably 3,000 or 4,000 new housing units develop downtown. And parks and trails are really important to downtown residents, many of who don't have their own yards. So more specifically, we're really wanting to, have year-round utilization to improve access to the river and reduce erosion from overuse in the wrong areas. You've seen a lot of the trails that have been developed as people have getting in and getting out of the river, because we really don't have very good formal access points throughout the downtown area. Obviously, we want to improve, widen, and connect the riverfront trail system. And I know that's something that you guys have talked about at different times over the decades. There's still some connections to make on the north side of the river. And, more and more people are using the trail system. So, widening from an 8 or 10 foot width trail to more of a, 12 to 16 or even 18 foot trail width is really what needs to be done. And then, of course, really wanting to upgrade and reorganize the infrastructure to better serve the public. to be more inclusive and have more equity in our offerings and design, and improve access to the corridor. If you're not from Missoula, you don't know how to get down to Karis Park. It's a mystery, and there's really no good signage or wayfinding system that helps navigate into the park corridor. So a lot of what I would normally say has been included in the memo from me, and then another memo from Annette. So we are at the end of this planning process. There is still time to make textual changes, but the renderings will likely remain the same as they are. We are working on a multi-agency adoption process, and this week, in addition to MRA, have all 3 of the Downtown Missoula partnership boards: the association, the foundation, and the business improvement district. We have been in front of the Missoula Parking Commission. The Missoula Parks Board has seen the plan, although they have not taken formal action. Destination Missoula and the Tourism BID Board both adopted the plan, and eventually will be in front of City Council in early November for the final approval of the plan. We do have a handful of projects that are sort of navigating into the implementation phases. One, of course, is the Higgins Bridge upgrades. And we do have some new and different plans for under the bridge. And we also have the Northwestern Energy Power Substation. They're doing some work on the substation. So they're working with members of the Public Art Committee to wrap that power substation in big art, which will be really exciting. City Public Works is working on a stormwater infiltration system that they will put underneath the Green Hill in Karis Park. So there's some opportunity to do additional improvements there. And then, of course, as things navigate in that area, we'll likely be tearing up the trail and doing some widening of the Riverfront Trail. So with that, I want to turn it over to Nathan McLeod to fill the gaps of what I haven't told you about, because he's really good at remembering all the details. Nathan, what do you have?
I think you really covered most of it, Linda. Thank you. One thing that's part of this plan that you didn't mention is we're also looking at, at least I don't think you mentioned it, at Kiwanis Park and Downtown Lions Parks as part of it. And these are more neighborhood center parks. So the focus is on neighborhood residents within the immediate envelope around the parks. But that is part of the plan, and there are some potential projects that might be moving forward with those sooner rather than later. There's some other interested organizations that are excited about some of those improvements. And then finally, Ron's River Trail that runs along the north bank of the river connects all of these parks together. And so another part of this plan is how we can better connect that trail. There are some pieces that are missing that along the riverfront, and we've made some really great connections in the past to make it work, but we're proposing some future connections that keep that trail along the river as much as possible so that it's easily navigable by residents and people visiting the parks in Missoula. I don't think I have anything else to add, though. I think if folks have questions, we're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you.
Yeah, so our goal today is to seek your formal adoption of this plan. And with that, let's open it up for questions.
Thank you, both. All three of you. Questions? Mel.
This is so exciting. Thank you so much for your work and the time you put into this. I just wanted, out of curiosity, without reading the whole plan, I was curious with the study and the planning, how crucial is the conversion of Main and Front into two-way streets in achieving the smooth traffic flow into these gorgeous redesigned areas? Is that in the plan?
That's certainly in the downtown master plan, Melanie, and we definitely have that as a high priority. But as you know, it's been funding that's been a barrier to getting that project done. Does it need to be done in order to incorporate the park improvements? Yes and no. Primarily no, but that intersection at Ryman Street, we are talking about, should we incorporate that into conversion and look at those improvements at that time, or are there things that we can do without conversion? That intersection is a little bit awkward. So, that's an area that there might be a pinch point.
Okay, anything else?
Carl, I do have one person in the waiting room.
Okay. Nancy,
Wait. I have a couple of questions.
okay, well, sure.
On your memo, Linda, you talk about the Higgins Bridge construction is underway and to reclaim and improve the staging area in the Riverfront Park and Besseridge Park. Could you talk about that a little more?
Of course, I think Nathan's really more equipped to deal with that. It's really
Okay.
MDT moving into that East Cares Park area.
So as you know, the Higgins Avenue Bridge is currently under construction. And so it's going to be under construction for the next 2 years. MDT and their contractors are using portions of East Cares Park as their staging area. So they're using it to store equipment and materials. And we have an agreement with them that they're going to be giving the Parks Department some money post-construction for us to restore those parks. And one of the reasons we really wanted to get these plans done now is so that we can actually use that money to restore the parks in a way that allows us to move these plans forward. So I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like, but for example, it might be something like we're not going to replant trees that are getting taken out right adjacent to the bridge because they're not in the future plans. We're going to use that money to move this project forward. The other major component is that currently under the bridge, it's a parking lot. And we've heard from multiple groups, and I'm sure you all would agree with me, that it is not a very friendly space under the bridge. It's not a place that you want to be as a pedestrian. It's dark, it's cold, it's ugly. We hear from the vendors in the market that they don't want to be set up near there because people don't want to go over there. And so part of this plan is to really try to activate that space in a way that makes it very friendly for pedestrians, that it's a multi-use space, that it provides activities such as climbing walls, basketball, parkour, but it also is done in a way that during an event, it could be used for vendor space. It could be a place for people to sit during the symphony in the park. So there's a lot of opportunities that we want to create under that bridge. And some of the main things are lighting and artwork just to make it feel like a better space. And so we've talked with the parking commission about this, and we've come to an agreement that we're not going to put parking back in that space after the bridge construction is done, that we're going to move forward with these plans and start to implement what we want to do under there, which is that lighting and artwork and activity. And so the parking is going to go elsewhere, primarily in the Bank Street garage. And the parking commission has been really, really great to work with. And I think they're also very excited about these plans. And so they're willing to work with us on that goal.
Thank you. I like the way the plans looked when I looked at all the videos on Engage Missoula. I also noticed when I was looking at those videos that there were a couple of ways to get from the bridge down to the parks. Have those been approved? Is the MDT gonna implement those? Where are we on those access bridges or ramps or slides or whatever?
So that's an ongoing conversation between multiple departments in the city and MDT. Our understanding is that MDT will allow us to do a bridge. Will allow us to do the stairs and an accessible ramp off of the side of the structure, as long as we're not interfering with the structure of the bridge itself. So basically, we would just attach a separate structure to the bridge. And in conversations with them, they've been really great in saying that they would allow something like that. And so that is a huge goal for this, and that's really important to have that accessibility from the bridge. As I think we all know, that's one of the primary entrances into this park, if not the most heavily used entrance.
Thank you. Then just one other question, because Annette's memo says that it's been adopted or approved by the parking commission, but then I think verbally she said that it was before them, but it hasn't been approved. So where are we with the parking commission? I'm glad that they're not going to require parking under the bridge anymore, but in the overall plan, is it their intention to adopt it? Do they have to adopt it before it goes to city council?
They unanimously approved the North Riverside Parks and Trails Plan last Tuesday.
Okay.
We have their full support.
Okay, thank you.
Nancy?
The plan covers phases of implementation, but without stating priorities or timeline. Could you talk about both of those, the priorities and the timeline, and also the sources of funding that you're going to be looking at or have identified?
I can talk a little bit about phasing and priorities, and maybe Linda can talk about funding. So we did show phasing in the plan. It's kind of conceptual in nature, trying to show how the different elements of the park could be broken up in a logical way. Now, I think we all have everyone has different ideas of priorities for the park. I think the way it will be implemented will be opportunistically. And so, for example, that raised lawn that's adjacent to the pavilion in Karis Park is going to be one of the first things that happens, solely because the infiltration gallery is going to be installed in that spot in a year or a year and a half. And so what we've asked Stormwater and their consultants to do is to, instead of putting the hill back the way it is, to put it back as a flat lawn so that we can move that portion of the park forward. You know, the other spot that would happen soon would be under the Higgins Avenue Bridge. Because that construction project is happening now, we have an opportunity to start to move that portion of the park plan forward. Another one is the electrical substation. Northwest Energy has been in conversations with us about doing a big art wall around that to screen it. They're also going to be removing a lot of the power poles along Patty Street. And so there's opportunities to try to implement that portion of the park. And so I don't think that we have other projects that have been identified specifically as being the next thing to happen, but we're going to be looking at it in the standpoint of what could happen based on opportunities and other types of construction, and then also based on funding opportunities. So if there's, say, some kind of a large grant that comes through for trail construction, that might be something that we'll be able to jump on and start to implement widening of Ron's River Trail.
Just a follow-up question on when the projects are done. Is there an economic advantage or disadvantage to not having stairs be part of the MDT project on the Higgins Avenue Bridge?
So stairs are part of their plan. They are installing stairs in approximately the same location on the west side of the bridge as they are now. And so although the stairs they are installing are not the vision that we have at this point, they will function, and they may be reusable in another place if we decide to go forward and replace them with something different.
So if I could jump in on that just a little bit, there's been a whole lot of discussion around those stairs. There was a desire on the part of some of the public to try to reuse the stairs that are there and adapt them to current codes. That simply is not economically feasible. They would basically have to be taken apart and reconfigured to meet ADA requirements, etc. I think a lot of the concern has been that the stairs that are proposed as part of the Higgins Avenue Bridge project by MDT are basically a utilitarian way to get from the bridge down to the park. The way I have viewed this and talked about it in multiple meetings is this, from the standpoint of the downtown master plan and the vision for downtown Missoula and Karis Park, is a temporary solution. It's what I call a Band-Aid. It will functionally get you from the bridge down to the park until such time as we decide how that best should happen for a permanent solution. And as Nathan pointed out, the stairs that are being proposed can simply be unbolted and used elsewhere, just like the stairs that are out there today will be. Those stairs will be unbolted and moved, and they'll be used by one of the other city departments for something totally different, which is probably going to mean cutting them up and reusing pieces of them in different ways. But it's not going to, they're not going to be scrapped out. I think, you know, long term, we would love to see a ramp either on the east side or the west side, and what I refer to from an architectural standpoint as monumental stairs from the bridge down into the park. But the resources are not there right now to do that. The city chose to put their resources into, or our resources into, widening that bridge and having it have really good bicycle and pedestrian accommodations in addition to the vehicular accommodations. So that's kind of the big picture of what's going on with the vertical circulation from the bridge down to the park.
Thank you.
Nancy, anything else?
Well, I don't have an answer to the sources of finance question yet.
All right. I think Nathan punted that to Linda.
The money lady.
Yeah, sure. Not. The phasing, as you can see, is not 1, 2, 3, 4, but really chunks of phases that could be taken up at any time independent of others. We envision this is probably going to be 10 years before we get the aspirational plan fully implemented. And one of the disadvantages we have right now is we don't know what the total cost is. It's been very challenging to understand what the cost of all the phases will be for 2 reasons. One, we didn't go far enough in our contract, and we didn't pay for the engineering component to understand what's underneath the pavers and the lawn. And then 2, right now, it's such a crazy moment in time that getting estimates and bids is, you know, they're skyrocketing through the roof. So it's really hard to know in a normal scenario what the total cost of each of the phases would be. Like many things that we have our hands in, it's not a single source of funding to complete the projects. And we have, through our Blue Ribbon Committee, which will kind of transition into being our fundraising team, really will need to look at multiple sources. And it could be user fees, it could be city CIP, it could be tax increment financing, it could be open space bonds, it could be grants. It could be work from the Army Corps or from MDT or from city or county. It could be lots of different things. And this plan doesn't go so far as to identify, you know, the cost of every item or which funding source should connect to it. So it'll be up to us in the implementation phases to really cobble together the funds to make the phases happen as opportunities present themselves. So while that's an answer, it's really not a fully defined answer in terms of the total cost and where the money will come from.
So it would be appropriate to say that MRA will have an opportunity or be given the opportunity to look to examine discreetly some of the projects.
Absolutely.
Okay, just another short question on parking. Are there parking under the bridge? Is that being accommodated for instance, the Wilma? And
so there's
other locations that use that parking?
There's 2 sections of parking underneath the bridge. The section north of Karis Drive will remain as is, and that is primarily utilized by the Wilma residents. The parking on the south side of Karis Drive has primarily been relocated mostly into the Bank Street structure by the Missoula Parking Commission. I think that's around 60 spaces.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Carl.
Hey, anything else? Other questions?
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Others? Okay. If not, is there a motion?
Carl, I still have a person in the waiting room too.
Okay, well, we'll let him in. Well, you can let him in now. I don't care. But is there a motion on the staff recommendation?
This is Ruth. I'll move that the MRA board adopt the North Riverside Parks and Trails plan in its final form and direct staff to forward that action to the city council prior to the public hearing, which is expected on November 2nd, 2020.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Further discussion? Public comment. Joe has been waiting patiently.
Good afternoon, board. This is Joe Easton, chair of the Missoula Parking Commission. I think Tiffany is also in the waiting room. I wanted to come on and echo Linda's comments. The Missoula Parking Commission addressed this plan at our meeting last week and endorsed it unanimously. We all support the vision and the plan for renovating and really changing Karis Park. We had one recommendation for text change, and that was agreed to by Linda and actually written by Linda at the meeting, which really just confirmed or articulated the timing of how decisions would be made to remove the surface parking lot in Karis Park. The bridge lot, yes, we are accommodating those spaces in other structured parking, so that can go forward without much impact onto our operation. But when we start to turn our attention towards pulling up that structured parking and making it into the visuals that you see in the plan, we wanted to stress that there had to be a plan or at least executed vision of how that parking was going to be replaced. It just wasn't going to be taken up without additional spots relocated somewhere else in the downtown core or within the parking district. And Linda understood that and Nathan understood that. And so with that small change in the narrative in the parking structure, we adopted or endorsed the plan 5-0.
Thanks, Joe. Jill, did you put up the numbers for anybody else?
Yep, I can do that, Carl. I have another caller that I've asked to unmute. Last four digits, 7382.
Hi, good afternoon all. My name is Tiffany Brander. I am the Parking Services Director for the Missoula Parking Commission. And I just wanted to briefly call in today and express my support of the North Riverside Parks and Trails Plan, both as a citizen of the city of Missoula, but also as the Parking Services Director. As Joe indicated just a few moments ago, the Parking Commission Board did approve this plan last Tuesday, and I just wanted to voice my excitement for the plan and just really state that we are looking forward to participating and ensuring that there is a significant process to find that additional and or replacement parking in advance of the transformation of parking. And if there are any questions or concerns about parking either now, in the future, or as implementation moves forward, the Parking Commission is always happy to discuss those concerns with board members, citizens, anyone who has any interest. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Me.
Okay, well, we just got the numbers up, so we've got to give a minute or two here for anybody else to call in and provide public comment. And while we're waiting, are there any additional comments or questions or anything from the board?
This is Ruth. I would just echo Melanie that I think this is a really exciting plan. And I was at several of the meetings, both the stakeholder meetings and the public meetings. And when I look at this plan, it looks like Missoula to me. It looks like they have accommodated so much of what Missoulians want. So I really appreciate this plan.
Thank you.
Nancy, you're muted. Nancy, you're muted. There we go.
There. I agree with the previous comments on the plan in general and appreciate the process that went through and the number of citizens that were engaged in the process and also engagement of staff. And that's a credit, and I congratulate those people and thank them for their time in putting this together.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. And the time looks like it was substantial. So, Joe, do we have anybody else who wants in? Joe? No one else wants in?
Nobody else in the waiting room.
All right, any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Thank you all for your
Thank
excellent
you.
work. And I'm sure we'll be seeing more of you.
Thanks, you guys. Really
Thank you
appreciate
all
your
very much.
support.
All right, and Nathan and Linda, of course, you are free to stay if you want to, but there's no but you don't have to.
Thanks,
So
Carl.
non-action items for the board. Ellen? Director's report?
Yeah. So sorry, I did not get a written director's report out to you, but I will do it verbally. First off, Carl and I've talked about this just a little bit, but having kind of lived through what is going on with development services being minus a director for quite some time now. We had an interim director there in the with Don Veru, who was formerly the building official who retired, agreed to come out of retirement and kind of manage on a day-to-day basis the comings and goings of development services. Don's ability to continue to do that ended last week because he's retired and he can only work so many hours before it starts to have a really adverse financial impact on him. So last week was his last part of his tenure as interim director of development services. Rob Gannon is a new employee that's been brought on by the city as the CFO for the city. He comes here having managed the kind of transit district, if you will, for King County, Washington. I think it was like 4,000 employees that he was oversaw. So after discussion with the administration, Rob and I have agreed to be interim development services directors. He will manage all of the kind of managing of the department, the personnel issues, day-to-day admin. I will, and already am, frankly, working with staff on regulatory issues that come up where they need some decisions made about how to proceed with this or that. The commitment that I made in talking to Carl and that I've made with the MRA staff is that MRA is absolutely 100% my first priority, and I will manage to take on this additional responsibility for a short period of time, I hope, while we're settling on a new director. And we'll manage to do that without adversely impacting what's going on with MRA. And thus far, it's working out really well. I mean, there's a great staff at Development Services. They need some leadership. I will not be in the minutia of Development Services, but rather in this position will be kind of working with senior staff and downline staff to work through issues and make decisions and move stuff out of there. They're understaffed right now and overburdened and are in the process of hiring and are just about to get hired up completely. But then, of course, there's a little bit of a training period. The corollary to that is that we have done a national search. We have narrowed candidates. We're in the process of trying to work with the preferred candidate to see if we can make that happen for them to relocate here and become development services director. There are a lot of challenges, as you may know right now, with all sorts of things, not the least of which are COVID and housing and some of those things that are changing in Missoula right now. And some of those things that are changing are all the more reason that this department, which is so critical to development, needs some leadership. So and I'm happy to answer questions. If the board has objection, we can discuss this and even rethink it. But nothing that's involved with me taking this on are things that I haven't done for long periods of time in my career. So zoning, subdivision review, building permitting, all of those things are nothing new to me. Let's just put it that way. I just had a nice reprieve of about 15 years or better. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them. If there are any comments, let's talk about them.
So let me just say that when Ellen talked to me about this, it looked to me like, first of all, once she made the commitment that she just made, that we were going to continue to be well served by her. Whether or not she's going to be getting any sleep in the next few months, that's another issue. It looked like an opportunity to where we could, play our part, helping out as part of city government, helping out when things are needed. And then the other piece of this thing that was important to me is that I've known Rob Gannon, was at the University of Montana before he went to Seattle. I've known him for a number of years. He's a very competent guy. And I think his, he'll work with us a great deal on making this work and make an understanding that Ellen's primary duties are to the MRA. If I was concerned that that wasn't the case, then that'd be something different. But at least my experience with Rob in the past is that he'll get this and he'll use her services wisely and understand her first commitment.
Well, and one other thing, I mean, the one thing that really does make this not so difficult to squeeze in is that all the other stuff I do with my life other than MRA and work for the city are gone. So it's,
Right.
Yeah.
So other questions from other board members, reactions, anything? I think that's an indication of our understanding that Ellen's a very competent person and we trust her implicitly. So,
well, I mean, the other piece of this is that you have a dynamite staff here. If I disappeared tomorrow, I think that would be seamless. So.
Please don't disappear tomorrow.
I'm not going to, but
okay. All right. Do you have anything else on the director's report?
Sure. We're working with actually development services and parks right now on this rezoning of 601 West Broadway, which is the piece of property at the west end of Riverfront Triangle that was formerly Tire-Rama, that's been vacant and for sale forever. That's going to be kind of, we think, a bit of a catalyst for piquing interest in moving Riverfront Triangle ahead. It's unfortunate and so logistically that will, if everything falls into place, that will develop before the rest of Riverfront Triangle, because they're codependent, as you can well imagine, looking at that piece of property. But I'm kind of looking at it as maybe a positive and an advantage to lighting a fire under some folks who may want to invest in the property to the east between there and Orange Street Bridge. We are talking to some other folks about Riverfront Triangle and some of the folks who have been involved in it over the last several years. So I'm feeling moderately optimistic about our ability to move forward with something happening there. There's a lot of money out there right now. Missoula is a hot ticket item in the world for whatever reason, and so I think we may find that there's some folks who are willing to reinvigorate that discussion, and maybe even some of the former players. Jill, I'm going to let you and Leslie talk a little bit about the communication plan. I think we finally have a contract now with Six Pony Hitch and are ready to move forward and initiate meetings, but I'll defer to the two of you to touch base on that.
Yeah, I can talk about that. We do have the contract executed, and we have a meeting with Spider on Wednesday to talk about, just how we're going to start that process and setting up interviews with the folks that she wanted to interview according to her scope of services.
And for the rest of the board, Mel's agreed to help on that too. So.
Yes. Thank you, Mel.
Thank you, Mel. Okay, anything else, Ellen?
Quickly, West Broadway plan. We did get the Big Sky Trust Fund grant for $25,000. We got a notice of award last Thursday, I believe it was. So we'll be incorporating the required language into that contract with Dover Cole and Partners and beginning that process as expeditiously as we can. The other piece is Scott Street property. We actually have a developer who is quite interested in taking advantage of opportunity zone benefits, as well as the fact that it's in an urban renewal district, looking at housing primarily, but mixed use as well. We're kind of working through whether or not there's a there right now, and if not, then we will. We understand we've got to do a public process around that in terms of input from the North Side neighborhood and other interested parties in the area. So we're kind of going through a discussion of, do we focus strictly on the developable part of the property we just purchased, or do we look at other available properties and do something that's more comprehensive? The opportunity zone possibilities are really constrained right now with timing. The end of December benefits start to diminish pretty significantly. The other piece of this is this little thing that we've got coming up in November called the election. There are varying opinions in Washington, D.C. on the federal level about this program. So how the election results could impact it is still an unknown. So moving forward with both of those projects, and I think they're both exciting projects, and you throw in Riverfront Triangle, and there's a whole lot happening in urban renewal districts, especially in the downtown area.
Okay, anything else? All right. Seeing no questions or anything for Ellen. Jill, budget reports? Anything we need to concentrate on?
So you see that we have two sets. We have the continuing of our fiscal year and 2020 with those reports. I don't know, do you want me to pull them up on the screen, or does everybody?
We've got them.
There's nothing really to report other than, I'm continuing to report out on that fiscal year 2020. And then the new fiscal year 2021 reports are in there. They do not have the updated mills because I didn't get that spreadsheet from the county until Friday. So we do have the updated mills from the county now. And so I'll be able to next month roll those into the rainbow reports and update those and give you a better idea of what we'll have for contingency numbers.
Anything surprising in the updated mill numbers? Since you've had a chance, I mean, if you haven't had a chance to notice, that's fine.
Hold on one sec. Let me do a comparison. So the new mill, total mills is 893.82 for all of our districts except for the 41C and the 41N, those sub-districts of ERD2 and North Reserve Scott Street. So compared to last year, so last year's mills were 0.89417 and this year it's 0.89382, depending on where you put the decimal, but so a little slightly down. And again, and the 41C and the 41N are just slightly up. There it was 0.871 before and it's 0.879. So very minimal.
Nothing dramatic.
Yeah, in the mill levies, the significant difference that we're going to see as far as the decrease in tax increment revenue in fiscal year 2021 is going to be because of the change in the taxable value. We're going to see decreases in all of the urban renewal districts because of the lower taxable value. And there also were some appeals.
Okay. Questions from anyone on the budget reports? Or any need to go into them with more detail from anyone? If not, no committee reports, no other items. I think we might be done unless somebody's got anything. Going once, going twice. If not, thank you all. What's the report on next month? Regular time?
Fingers crossed that we can go back to the normal meeting schedule, but we thought that for this month too, so.
Okay.
Posted.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you all. Have a nice rest of your day.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.